we are going to be using Illustrator to create some color studies. I'm going to show you some of the tools that you can use in Illustrator to do that. First, we're going to open a new file. Choose whatever kind of artboard that you want. We also can choose our color board or our color mode. And I'm going to choose RGB color because I anticipate only working with this on the screen. If you anticipate printing this ever, you should choose CMYK color. Have a new document. I'm actually going to go over to the one I started before and zoom in so I can find a new workspace on my large artboard. The tools that we're going to be using in this are mostly going to be the selection tool, the rectangle or other shape tool, which you can get to the other shapes by double or right clicking, the pen tool, the knife tool, which is nestled under eraser, and the eyedropper tool. We are going to, from the very beginning, select our stroke color as no color. We're going to be dealing completely with fills. I want to make sure I have all of my artboards up. So I want my layers, I want transform and align, but I also want to make sure I have my color board up. And the main color board that I'm going to use is color that has the large spectrum of color so that I can scroll around and choose a color anywhere within this spectrum. I'm not going to worry about properties or color guides or Adobe color themes. I don't need Adobe to choose my colors for me. That's what I'm here to do. So first, I'm going to use my rectangle tool to make the basic components of my study. Now choose a rectangle. I want another one the same size, so I'm going to copy and paste it. So Command C, Command V. Press select so I can move this around, move them right next to each other. I'm going to differentiate their colors kind of arbitrarily at the beginning here, and I need to choose two key shapes. I'm going to make two more little rectangles, copy, paste, so that I know they're the same size. Select tool V. So I'm going to place them in the centers of their grounds, and I want to select both of them. And to do that, I have one selected. If I press Shift, I can select both of them, and now they're both selected. I want to be able to change their color at the same time because this is going to be a 3 looks like 4. So I'm going to choose a color that I think will have a different quality on each background. I'm going to start with the kind of pinky kind of color. Okay. They have a little bit different identity on the two sides. Looks a little lighter on the right, a little darker on the left. But I think I can boost that maybe more. And I think I can accentuate that using the backgrounds as well. So I am going to select my green side, and it's looking a little darker on this side, so I want to accentuate that. So maybe I can bring the green into a lighter kind of zone. Now there's a contrast of lightness and darkness, maybe also saturation. So I'm going to play a little bit more with that. Okay, and I may be able to further develop that difference by working also with this violet. Okay, I like this combination here. I have a darker effect of the key color on the left side, lighter on the right side, looks a little more reddish on the left and a little more purple on the right. So once I am happy with my combination, I can also mess around a little bit with the layout. So for this one, I'm just going to align the objects. So I have two squares in the center, but I of course could move them into kind of different symmetrical positions in order to accentuate the image. So I like that layout, and so that I don't mess it up, I'm going to group it. I can group by either going to Object and then Group, or by pressing Command G. Now I have a pretty interesting 3 looks like 4. And you can use all of these same principles to do your 3 looks like 2 and your 4 looks like 3. So I'm going to put this aside. We can look for a second at a 3 looks like 2 that kind of really approaches the edge of that phenomena. And you can see that if I ungroup these, that these 2 are the same color. I'm going to move this back. You can see in this one here that these 2 key colors resemble each other very much, but they are distinct. How I did this was keeping both the key color and the key color index selected at the same time, and then keeping this and this selected at the same time, but not selecting all 4 at the same time. The other thing I want to touch on here is working towards middle mixtures. So how can we develop the optical middle mixture using Illustrator? So I'm not going to just drop my transparency and make what Adobe thinks the middle mixture is. I want to think like a painter and choose my colors specifically. So I'm once again going to go to my rectangle tool, and I'm just going to make a rectangle, and then I can go and make either a different kind of shape or another rectangle, but I'm going to use the pen tool to make a shape that I want to deal with. So I can make a curved shape, or I can make some kind of triangle. I'm going to choose a color for it, select this other one too, and choose a color for it. Blue. So I want to create a middle mixture between this green and this pink. But when I overlay it, it just overlays it. So in order to choose this color, I want to divide this shape into 2 parts. And that's where this tool comes in, the knife. It looks like a little saw. So I'm going to select the knife. I want to have my correct object selected. I'm going to press knife. I'm going to line up where I want to cut this, and I'm going to cut it right on the edge of this rectangle. And so I can just press knife and go cut. As you see, that wasn't a perfectly straight cut, so I'm going to Control Z, and I am going to instead, when I click my knife tool, before I click it, I'm going to press Option. And you see I have it'll give me a straight line that I can now cut at a straight line. So now I have, if I press V, I have 2 parts. So now I can control them individually. So I can control this and I can control this. And so I'm going to create this part as the middle mixture. I'm going to look at my color spectrum. My green is somewhere around here, and one way or the other, I need to approach this kind of magenta. So I can go through the color spectrum. I can imagine it as a spectrum or a wheel, and I'm going to get halfway between this green and this magenta. There's not a lot of value difference between them, and so I'm going to focus mostly on chroma or hue. That seems to favor the magenta more than the green. So I'm going to kind of move around and make a few different choices. I'm going to make some outlandish ones that are absolutely incorrect. So I want either the illusion that the green triangle is sitting on top of the pink square or vice versa. So this is getting kind of interesting. I'm going to move back towards the kind of orange zone. This is still favoring the pink. That is a color that's a little lighter than either the green or the pink, so I want to make sure it gets a little darker. That is also, once again, lighter. That's getting there. And it's useful to click off of it once in a while so that you can see just the color against the color without the bounding box. I think that is still a little too much, a little too far. Ooh, whoops. So now this color is taking on some of the qualities of the violet, the magenta, and the green. And so I'm going to check this out. I think I'm going to stay here. It is right in the middle between these two different values. It appears as though the magenta square is sitting on top of the green triangle. I'm going to do this one more time with this weird boot shape, and I'm going to place this, and I'm going to move it around a little bit. I'm going to place that on top of that, and now I'm going to use my cutting tool, have it selected, use my cutting tool, press Option, and divide that piece in half. So now I have two parts. And to select off of it and just select this rounded area, and I'm going to find the middle mixture between these two colors. I think this one's not going to be particularly hard because they're already neighbors. Magenta and purplish blue are already color neighbors. So this is not a particularly ambitious middle mixture, but I want to find something that is between the two in terms of value, saturation, and hue. Liking that. Try a little more saturated. That's certainly closer to the magenta, but I'm going to approach the violet. This is looking to be closer to a kind of right in the middle zone between the magenta and the blue. And when I erase that bounding line, I can really see it, and it too appears as though the magenta square is hovering on top of the blue shape. So there you have some middle mixtures. Here's another example that I made of a set of middle mixtures. And this group I grouped back as one whole shape so that if I want to move something around, I don't end up just taking the tail of this green triangle. So on this, I'm going to select them all and group them. So Illustrator has been a really kind of fun way to experiment with the optics of kind of each of these studies. As you're working, I recommend trying to fill your screen or your whole area with the piece that you are working on so that it can really start to get into your optic nerve and you can see what's convincing and what isn't. The kind of extreme proximity of each of these makes the individual studies lose some of their power until we get to see them on close approach.